começamos há 2 meses a realizar esses encontros, essas conversas, que é uma forma de aproximar de uma maneira mais focada o público das exposições, do conjunto de exposições do museu, e sempre em torno de uma exposição ou de alguma questão, né, vinculada a algumas das exposições. E, enfim, assim tem acontecido, isso tem sido muito produtivo. Uns têm mais gente, outros têm menos público, mas, enfim, o importante é estar essas coisas acontecendo, criando uma agenda. Por conta, né, do Prêmio PIPA e da exposição e um pouco uma discussão em torno do prêmio e um desdobramento importante do prêmio, que é a residência que a gente oferece vinculada ao prêmio, junto com a Gasworks em Londres. A gente resolveu fazer essa conversa e temos um convidado que é o Rowan, que está aqui do meu lado, e que é da Gasworks de Londres. Eu vou também falar inglês para ele poder participar. The idea this afternoon then is to concentrate on the residencies, especially on the experience of Gasworks, which has been doing a very interesting project for the last, I think, 15 years, or 17 years. And in the last years, all these residencies have been grown a lot all over the world, especially in Europe. And I think the experience of Gasworks is an outstanding one. So he will speak a little bit about the Gasworks, their projects, how they work, how they link being invited artists with the artists that have studios, long-term studios at the Gasworks. And he will speak a little bit about this project. And Rowan has been working with them for the last year. And then after that I will speak a little bit about the people, about the prize, how we started, how we developed.
Sorry, I can't speak in Portuguese today, but I'm convinced that next time I come I'm going to be at least a little bit better at Portuguese. So I can just give a bit of context, a bit of background about Gasworks and some of the programs related to the institution for now. So basically Gasworks is for people that don't know, is a space in South London. It's a 3-story Victorian building that's actually attached to the Gasworks, which is still functioning. And within this building, there's several programs, but I mean, first of all, I curate the residencies program, which is sort of part of what happens there, which I'll go on to talk more about. But within the space, there's a gallery space that has a program running all year of 4 to 5 exhibitions that are all curated in-house. And also, Gasworks is part of a bigger network of art spaces throughout the world called the Triangle Network, which is the Triangle Arts Trust. And originally Gasworks was founded by the Triangle Art Trust in 1994, around this time, on sharing some of the similar principles of this wider network. And the network itself spans, I think, nearly 30 different countries, and is a network of sort of artist-led spaces around the world. So exhibitions, workshops, residencies and outreach projects that share the same kind of core aims of working with artists and being artist-led and sort of peer-to-peer learning and networks. And also within the building there's 12, I think as Milo said, there's artist studios in the building. There's 12 studios in all, 4 of which I look after for residencies. And the remaining 8 studios are local London-based artists that are invited by the team at Gasworks. So it's a mix of artists working in different materials, and with the aim of creating a community along with the staff at Gasworks, many who are artists themselves, to create a community that the residencies are invited into. So yeah, just briefly on the Triangle Network a little bit more. So yeah, we concentrate on sort of mostly because the actual network is run from Gasworks, or like the head of the network is there. So the director, Alessio, is involved with Gasworks programs and Triangle Network programs. And it's concentrating on areas where art infrastructure is sort of more limited, or that's the main focus of areas, even though we have a partner here in Brazil, Caprisec. But we also have partners in Bangladesh, Pakistan, Cuba, areas which otherwise have limited kind of connections and links with the outside world. So I think when we first started out, or when the Triangle Networks first started out, which was nearly 30 years ago now, I think this was sort of non-existent, and it's slowly been, I think, more and more organisations emerging that are dealing with these sort of missing links between different cultural institutions. And I think one thing that we're doing actually is a conference that's coming up at the end of November about networks and the kind of value of arts networks and the kind of sustainability in the future of Triangle Arts specifically. So the residencies program that I run, it's basically developed, I think, at the beginning of Gasworks history as an opportunity for artists to live and work in London for a period of 3 months, which is sort of without the constraints, the normal constraints of work and sort of family issues, and it's a fully supported residency, so all of the sort of financial worries are kind of dealt with while they're there, and accommodation and materials and living expenses. And sort of away from the day-to-day worries, but also I think the commercial constraints that lots of artists feel these days, and having to sell their work, or the pressure from the gallery that might be represented by, and also about supporting artists that wouldn't necessarily even have this representation to earn enough from their work. So lots of artists we work with have a part-time job or a full-time job to support their practice. And the sort of the core principles of this residency program are about the sort of exchange of ideas through practice and through discussion with their peers, sort of experimentation of new materials, new ways of working, and new approaches. Sort of artists, curators, and arts professionals in London and throughout the UK through Gasworks contact, but also sort of making their own, which is, so the program really is sort of about, and similar with the Triangle Network, linking the national and the local with the international. So the provision we have is quite modest. They have a basic studio and a desk and there's a computer room, but it's not really about materials and space compared to lots of residencies where, very, very modest. But I think it's really about sort of thinking of London as a studio in itself, like the wider context of the UK. And they receive from us sort of basic administrative and creative support. So everybody at Gasworks is an arts professional or an artist themselves, and it's very much welcome to have kind of discussions about their work. And most of the curator at Gasworks, Robert and Alessio, often have studio visits with the artists while they're there. And we also, the other provisions that we have is we set up a program of curators' visits to the studios from other institutions in London, which is usually some of the big names, and then thinking about more specific curators that would be interested or would suit their practice. And there's a real kind of diversity of artists that we deal with at Gasworks and that we work with. So we don't set any limitations necessarily within the visual arts, but we sort of look at non-traditional ways of working and artists that are interested in experimenting. And we prioritise emerging artists, emerging to mid-career artists who wouldn't necessarily have had an opportunity to work in London, possibly Europe. The website profile they have on Gasworks, I think there's quite a lot of traffic coming through the website. So again, even when they're in London, they're sort of being seen internationally. And that's a lot of the time within a few weeks of being at Gasworks, there's some sort of gallerists or people approaching artists who are there. They also use it as a resource to sort of see young artists that are working out there. And then there's events, talks and education outreach programs that that residents take part in while they're there. So there's, I think the classic structure was always an artist talk at the beginning of the residency, where all of the residents will give a brief introduction to their practice, to a community of local artists and arts professionals. There's a few local art schools who are quite actively involved with Gasworks programs. And then at the end of the residency, they would take part in an open studio exhibition, which is sometimes artists treat it as a sort of professional exhibition, but it's mostly seen as a way of showing work in progress, or sometimes it can just be about showing some papers or some research they've been working on. So yeah, I think at one time we have sort of 4 artists in residence who are there for the 3 months. Before, sort of when I arrived, we were having sort of 3 artists every 3 months. So now we're working with 16 plus partners each year, and partners such as PIPA for Brazil, and most of the partners help us fund a residency usually from sort of nation specific, from one nation. But yeah, there's a few partnerships we have, art prizes we work with in the UK that are open to any nation, and in these cases they usually involve some kind of exhibition outcome or are linked to some kind of event. So we do something with the Frieze Art Fair, the big art fair in London. Frieze Projects is the section of the fair that's about commissions and supporting artists outside of the kind of commercial context. And the program we have with them has been running for a number of years, and we have an artist living and working in London and staying with us, working towards a commission that is then presented at the fair. So the artist, last week we had a German artist, Anahita Razmi, who's of Iranian descent, has been working on a project where she was filming in Tehran and presented. She restaged Trisha Brown's roof piece on this sort of swapping the skylines of New York for the rooftops of Tehran. This partnership is similar to others. It's a sort of collaboration where we select the artists together and work with them towards the end of the project, but they also take part in all of the other events outside of Frieze. Yeah, I think, in terms of the future of the program, we're looking to sort of expand, but we're never going to kind of compete with some of the larger sort of residencies in terms of scale. I think, to me, for artists at a time, it seems, I think this increase isn't just to be bigger. I think it's actually, it sort of will impact on the experience that artists have while they're there. So we don't want to just be about somewhere that houses our artists and they kind of get on with it. We still want to be able to kind of keep this level of support and focus on each individual partnership and each individual process.
Well, I'm going to make a quick and brief presentation of PIPA. We are this is the 2nd edition. We started it last year, and as I said earlier, it is a partnership between MAM and Instituto Investidor Profissional. Actually, Investidor Profissional is an investment fund who approached the museum 2 years ago, and we started talk of possibilities around the field of contemporary arts, and then after discussing and what we could do and how we could do, we decided to do this project together. We decided that to start an art prize would be interesting. The focus would be on the contemporary art scene, and so how could we get some experiences from different prizes, different awards in Europe and the US and South America. There are other prizes, even in Brazil there's an important art prize which is Marco Antonio Vilaça, but it's a different concept of prize. And then we decided that we would take the idea of the Turner Prize, first of all, because of the link of the prize with the museum, how it was related with the Tate, and how it helped to, give some visibility. Apart from the visibility to, I think that they didn't need exactly the Turner Prize to be sort of steered up and developed the young British artists in the 90s, 80s, 90s. But I think the Turner Prize was part of the same process. But I think for the Tate it was a good opportunity to get this wave related with the young British artists, and the Turner Prize was part of the same wave. But we knew that the idea was not to just import the Turner Prize, but the idea to adapt it to our reality, the reality of our institution, the demands of our contemporary art scene. We're not naive that, oh, we're going to make a Turner Prize, let's just bring it here. But how we could develop something that had a model, but could be adapted, translated, put in these terms, to our reality and to our institution. After an open discussions and discussions inside with the council, we are still improving, trying to get some opinions, some suggestions, some critics, and trying to bring it to our concept and make some improvements. It's a work in progress. It's a very new project, a new prize. And so the idea, as I said, was to adapt the base model of the Turner Prize to our reality here, to get a short list, and how to reach the short list was a bit different. And then after we have the short list, the four artists, to make a show in the museum, and after that to work with the catalog, the documentation of this contemporary art scene, not even in the catalog, but in the website, the site of the PIPA. And so, because we wanted to increase in the website, we started also the prize online, all the nominated artists, and each one indicates up to 5 artists. So in 30 people times 5 is 150, or it can be 150. Of course, they're not 150, but there are a lot of artists that are nominated. And so part of the galleries are not that big, and I think it's a minimum part, and they have a look, they have an experience, they know what is going on, they look different artists, and they have the feeling of the scene, and so why not having them in this nominated committee. The idea is also to invite some international curators, critics, people from the art scene that have been, in a way, familiar, have some relationship with Brazilian contemporary art, so they also nominating artists. So after these first nominations, 30 people make their indications, and then we have a big list, and the 4 most voted artists compose this short list, and then they come to the exhibition. And then in the website, all the artists have their own page, and the PIPA Online Prize Award is given, chosen into that big list. So they start, all these artists, they were in 2 years 160 nominated artists to the PIPA Prize. And what is, I think, interesting is from 160 artists in 2 years, I think that 27 were repeated. So there are 133 artists in 2 years, different artists with a page on the website and a page in the catalog. And so it brings people to this world in a way. And the feedback that I'm receiving from young artists is that after they are taking part in PIPA, lots of friends that are not part of the art scene started to see his or her works and to comment and to see, oh, I saw these other artists and I like it very much. And so it's something that grew a lot in this last 2 years. The prize can be a platform to bring them to the international scene, to put them there and steer and help to disseminate the career a little bit, to have the experience to discuss their works with different artists from different parts of the world, with critics and curators that goes to Gasworks, that belongs to Gasworks. The idea is not only to give a prize, give some money. It's a lot of money if you count what they receive to produce the work, what they receive to go to London to these 3 months, and what they will receive as the prize goes to 100,000 reais, so it's a lot of money, and it's comparable to any big prize in the world, and so it's a moment that they can stop a little bit and to recycle and breathe a little bit in a city as London, which is always interesting to get some more information, to get a background from these discussions that they will have in a place like Gasworks. And the idea is to improve this partnership. We're very happy with the possibility to improve this, and so the idea of this discussion this afternoon too is to get some new ideas how we can develop it and improve the prize, the partnerships, the show, the exhibition, and so this is the main idea. I think at the website you have a lot of information about the prize, a lot of information about the artists. I think that there you're starting to the little bit the memory of the Brazilian contemporary art scene, because in 2 years we have more than 100 videos through Skype. They speak a little bit about their process, show a little bit their works, and you have also the page of the artist where you can see a little bit of the works. They choose the works that they want to show. So it's a documentation, it's an archive of the Brazilian art scene that I think would be very helpful in the future. And even these artists that have made 2 videos, it's interesting how they change, how they think a little bit different about their works, and how their works changed also after a year. So all these aspects and elements, I think, is part of our idea, and how to bring it to a museum, to an institution, and how the institution is part of the documentation, the research, and to give visibility, to give this international platform. So I think we can open now to discussions. Maybe I forgot to say a few other things that we can, after questions.
I first heard about PIPA from Facebook, now I remember, so it means that the social media is really working.
It's really working.
It's really working, and it's a beautiful prize. We need more initiatives like that, because this is definitely a platform for linking the Brazilian art to London, like for instance in a residence program like Gasworks.
It's very nice to hear you talking, because all this network and things happening, people visiting the studios.
We didn't finish the discussions about new ideas. The idea is maybe how we can improve. The discussion is how to improve this, and how to make a bigger integration between the online prize and the other 2 prizes. How it can be more orchestrated, these things, and also how we can develop also a partnership with them, with Gasworks, and maybe different projects. The artists thinks different possibilities versus this. If the artist has a project that is linked with a library, they have this project with the Chelsea, and maybe something that can be done in this direction. I thought also the possibility, for instance, if the artist has a small kid and cannot go to Gasworks, maybe to develop a project that is a publication that will use the network of Gasworks. I have a question. I also wrote it here, but not to forget, because I didn't know about this educational project, and a community that is related with. So you program visits and discussions with the community, or how is it done? There is someone there that is working in the educational project, and the people that goes there for the residencies, they take part in the educational project, or only the long-term residents?
Yeah, it's on a, I didn't say much about the education program, but it's a case-by-case basis. So my colleague Katie has been running a program for a number of years, and we sort of changed the name to the participation program. She doesn't see herself as an educator, but she's very much interested in getting a community involved. So Gasworks is surrounded by social housing projects, as is much of London, but it's very much a residential area. We're not around where all the galleries are or where the hot cafes and restaurants are. So I think this involvement with the community, because we've been there so long, is quite important. And we don't ever plan anything. Everything has to be quite a sort of organic, fluid process. We don't plan anything before residents come, but often I'll try and pinpoint if they have a practice that it might work within a kind of participation mode before they come, and there'll be some discussion about their work, and especially sometimes they've had experience before working with communities within the creation of some of their work. In the case of the Chilean artists we just had, or directly interested in education. So there'll be this discussion before they come, and then when they're there, there's discussions with me and Katie, who runs the program, and the artists, to see if it's sort of practical, or if it makes sense, or if it could develop an interesting project. So we're not interested in having projects for the sake of having education projects. We don't necessarily just have tours of the gallery where someone will tell people stuff. It's more about getting people involved. She runs different workshops with artists who are based in London, and invited artists. And in some cases, we can develop a series of events or workshops that involve this same community which is built up in this way. So I think one of the artists we had earlier this year from Chile, Catalina Bauer, produced, she'd done work, in the production of her work she'd used sort of communities, or worked with communities rather than using in sort of communal knitting projects. And when she was there, we sort of hosted a number of sort of public group drawing projects that involved used pencils that people would donate, colour pencils. And this was more focused on working with local schools, but the program is sort of designed to be cross-generational, so working with kind of old people's homes in the area, or mostly families that have someone representing different generations. So it's not something that automatically happens with every artist, but we try and see if it makes sense, and we hope to have at least one every term that works well with the education program. And we're going to be initiating some specifically education-focused or participation-focused residencies in the future. So we'll have.
And the 4 artists that stay there this 3 months period, they start and finish the same moment.
Yeah, it will take a few days,
yes,
but it's designed to fall into different
yes.
seasons so that they share the experience and
yes.
they arrive and lead together. I mean, there's a few that have to, because of like the Freeze Fair. For some reason, they wouldn't change the date for the fair just for us, so we have to have a slightly different sort of date for that.
And how is it sponsored?
So yeah, I think I didn't really get to it, but we have different partners for each residency. So there's 16 plus partnerships, and so we supply all of the staff and my assistants and the studio space at Gasworks, and all of the funding that supports the artist's sort of living accommodation, materials, stipend, comes from the partner. So we have all sorts of different partners. Some of them are smaller institutions, and some are private funders or foundations. And so like in the case of PIPA, the partner will fund the residency spots outside of Gasworks. And sometimes this is, so that in the case of the Swedish resident, we work with Jaspers in Stockholm, and they have a program set up to support artists all around the world. Do you want to capture it?
Also English funds.
Yeah, so some of the English funds, so we usually have one main sponsor for each residency, but the ones that don't have, sorry, for each one it's a different one main funder. So say for each Chilean artist it's the Becca Amor Award, which is one funder, but we have the number of partners we have based in the UK usually enable like an open submission from anywhere in the world. So there's the Freeze project is one, Train, which is the Chelsea Research Centre, and we work with a number of museums in London who are interested in setting up residencies programs and don't have the infrastructure themselves to host. So we work with the Natural History Museum in London to supply a residency which each year the nation changes, and then they're invited. So it was, I think the first year was China, and then Australia, and then India.
What is tradition here in Brazil is you have the salons, the art salons, and since the 19th century, the price of the salon was a trip to Paris. First to Rome and then to Paris. In the 19th century was to Rome, and then in the middle of the 20th century changed to Paris. And it was a huge price. The artist stayed there 5 years, living by the money of the empire. The emperor, there was a prize given by the emperor in the 19th century. To the generation of the 60s, 70s, this was, quite an important thing to their careers, to go abroad and get in touch with the scene. And then many artists went to this, after these prizes, to go to awards, to go to different institutions or different places in Europe or in the US. And then in middle 90s, Helmut started the Capacete. He started in his apartment here in Flamengo when he first lived, when he came back from Europe. I remember his first installment there, and the first show was by Ricardo Vaz in his flat in Flamengo.
The show was there too?
The show was in his own apartment.
But it's interesting because it's very much like that still. It feels like
Oh yes,
the residencies
yes.
Still in Flamengo.
Yes.
He still comes
And
around dinner.
it was an amazing Art Deco building in Flamengo near Rua Paissandu. And then, he grew, he developed a lot, and then we went to São Paulo, and then FAAP in São Paulo started a residency project, and then Porto Alegre, Iberê Camargo started the project too. And so after this cell, there was some developments and implements in different places. And São Paulo has now Capacete, FAAP, and now there's a gallery there that is starting, the Mendes Wood. It's a small gallery, and very nice. And they are starting a residency project. And Galeria Vermelho also had a sort of residency, especially they had a work with documentation, art documentation. So I think it's something that is improving, stuff progress now. People, all the artists are going to residencies in lots of places. What I think is very interesting in Helmut's Capacete's project is the way that he brings different artists from all over to Rio. And I think this is very important to the art scene in Rio, which traditionally is very parochial.
Yeah.
And so I think this brings different perspectives and established different contacts and links. And the artist goes abroad after these links, and he organizes talks and discussions, and so people get in touch.
Real network.
Yes, a network.
In real sense.
And he brings curators too. There's a residency for curators. Yes, which is interesting. In touch with some of them.
And I guess he's doing this all outside of constraints. Is there any affiliation with like a sponsor or commercial? I guess he does it a similar way to Gasworks in terms of funding from each partner.
Actually, we had an experience that was with Portugal, with Marta. She was a resident curator here, and now she is assistant curator. So she came with a project from Portugal to the museum.